just gonna go with it. I don't know why it keeps freezing, y'all. Sorry about that. I hope this is working. I'm gonna just keep going here. Because you know that's what you get. I don't know. Frozen my. Okay. Hey guys, it's Melissa D'Antoni live here in the studio. I wanted to just do a video and talk about anger. Hey Trisha, what's up, sister? Hey Rachel. Hi. So good to see you here. Okay, I want to talk about anger, y'all. Anger is so up for so many people right now, and including myself. And frustration, you may be feeling anger, irritation, or irritability. You know, let me know if you are feeling this. Hey Joni. What's up, sisters? Hey Shannon. Okay, so I want to talk about anger. This is super important to get this. It's so important. First, I want to talk about the myth, and I keep seeing this lately, so I feel like I need to speak up about it. So we have been taught, especially as women, that, but this is just in general in our society, in our modern day society, that anger is a toxic emotion. You know, a lot of old spiritual teachings and paradigms have taught us that anger is bad, it's negative, that it's not spiritual, that it's toxic, that blah, 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 blah. I wanted to dispel that myth because anger, right, our emotions are actually just energy in motion. They are always moving, shifting, changing, and evolving. As we are growing, moving, shifting, changing, expressing ourselves and evolving and experiencing, digesting life. Our emotional flow is an energetic, right? Emotions are energy in motion. They are our life force moving through us and our whole being, our bodies, our minds, our emotional body, our physical body. It's how we digest life, right? It's how we metabolize our life experience in these physical bodies as a soul. So, you know, this myth that anger is shameful blocks that emotional flow. So if you are at war with your anger, what we tend to do is internalize that, yeah? And it creates blocks and it creates disease internally, right? It can manifest in so many different ways depending on your soul's purpose and genetic makeup and, you know, ancestry and blah, 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 blah. It is so important that we learn to free our anger in healthy ways and that we learn how to discern what its messages are. It's calling us for action. So I want to talk about this. It's so important. If we deny our anger, we're denying some aspect of ourselves, of our own emotional truth, of our power, of our potency, of our life force, right? Of our existence. So if you want to step into your full self-expression, you have to start embracing, embodying, and softening into your anger and allowing it to flow and learning how to channel it in healthy, creative ways, because that is ultimately what it is. Anger is this premortal. If you get to the impulse of anger, it's passion, right? It's desire. And if you have beliefs about yourself or beliefs that it's not okay to have desires, right? I'm talking about like the desires in your heart that you are born with, that you are that are divinely inspired at the heart level, what you're here to create. So that impulse, right? Hey, Danny, that impulse, that creative impulse, that passion, that desire is that premortal creative energy, that primal creative energy. And so when it's frustrated, when it can't express itself, whether it's a limited belief or a block or, you know, whatever it is, you know, anger is going to show up. And that's a normal part of our emotional again, energy in motion, emotion, our emotional way of metabolizing life, right? It's our life force in motion. Hey, Deborah, who's with me? So let me know if this is resonating for you and also where you are tuning in from. So, so that's anger. Anger is really just like whether it's a trigger or it's a frustration, like something, usually there are 3 different messages that anger is trying to communicate with us. And if we're tuning in to our emotional body, to our feeling body, right? And we're not just so focused on our mind and our cognitive, practical knowing, logical way, because if we're only focused in the left brain, we are only living on the left side of life, right? So you're not living in your full self. You're not living in your full potential. You're not living in your wholeness. And so it's so important that we start feeling our way through these things, right? And through life, so that we can experience more fulfillment. So anger is this, like, you know, at the very base of it is raw emotion. It is raw life force. It's raw creativity. It's raw creative energy. And how do you discern and decode its message for you? So usually anger tells us three things. This is what I've learned, what I've found. This is what I teach in my experience. And I'd love to know too, if you have other experiences, what your thoughts are. But anger, number one, usually tells us that a boundary, a personal boundary, has been crossed. Where we need to exert a boundary, where we need to speak up for ourselves, where we need to take action, where we need to make a change. But it usually tells us that something is not okay with our own personal space, you know, our own, how we take care of ourselves, our own well-being. Something's out of alignment. And so if we aren't, you know, honest with that, if we don't speak up about it, and if we don't take action on it, that anger can stew. That anger can be internalized, and it shows up as symptoms and disease and physical pain, right? So it's super important to listen to it. So number one, it shows us where our boundaries have been crossed. Number two, anger can also tell us where we need to let go, where our wounded ego or fear, you know, the fearful part of us, or our personality is attached to a certain outcome, and it needs to let go, right, of what we can't control. So that's the other message of anger. It tells us to let go and, you know, redirect maybe. But really, you know, in my experience, it's really about letting go. Okay, I can't control that. This is not my responsibility, and to kind of bring it back home. Number three is it's also asking for something creative. So it's asking for action. So what, if you have an experience that triggers some anger, you know, it could be an emotional release from a past trauma. Always, you know, usually if something's coming up, it's coming up to release like a bigger emotional expression or some trapped emotion from the past, or and have some sort of energetic release. But it also is inviting, like if you're pissed off about something happening in the world right now, you're also being invited to create something new. So how can you take that anger, express it, find a healthy way to express it? Of course, I love paint, and we do that with Creative Alchemy. So you can sling paint is a great way. It's one of my favorite ways. Get messy, but you know, dance it out. Whatever you need to do to have that physical, full body, multi-dimensional release energetically, so that you can then, you know, take that premortal energy that's at the base of anger and transform it into creativity and to create change, right? So important. But if we are denying our anger, if we're going to project it onto somebody else, we're not going to take responsibility, and we're going to disempower ourselves. So it's really important that you own your anger, and that you learn how to work with it, and you learn how to in your own maturation and your own emotional maturation and full self-expression, that you embrace it and you play with it and you have fun with it, and you learn how to use it in creative ways, right? Generative ways. Who's with me? So, so important that you express it, because if we don't express it, then we start to internalize it, and it becomes, right, self-destructive. Or we can take on other people's anger that really, you know, if you're sensitive, if you're really open and you're empathic, if you aren't owning your own anger, you can tend to take on other people's, right? And it's really not yours to process. It's really not yours to metabolize. So it's also about getting really clear on what's yours, what isn't yours. And the quickest way to do that is to take responsibility for what's showing up in your experience. All right? Lots of love to you. The Creative Priestess School is open. And if this is resonating for you, if you want to learn how to use creative alchemy to transform your emotions, your reality from the inside out, if you want to create emotional and financial sovereignty for yourself and others, I would love to speak with you. Feel free to direct message me. Deborah says, what about relaxation techniques? Relaxation techniques are great, but like, have you ever tried to meditate when you haven't honored the fact that you are churning inside? It doesn't really work. You have to find a way to express that energy to return back to peace, to return back to, center, whether you're writing it out, whether you are dancing it out, whether you're slinging paint. I mean, I always use creative expression because that's what comes so natural to me. And it's quick and it's easy and it can be fun and it can be playful. But if you try, it's kind of like when people used to come into the studio and they would be like raging mad, but they would want to paint a flower, because they want to feel peaceful. It's like you have to honor the intensity inside you. You have to honor the rage. You have to honor, like, it's a gift. And by embracing it and by expressing it, you're giving it a voice, and it shifts. It shifts like that when you honor it. But if we deny, repress, if we try to put, it's like one of my teachers used to say, it's like putting ice cream on top of poop. That doesn't work, right? It doesn't work. You have to go deeper and honor the expression for what it is, right? You have to honor the anger. You have to take its message. You have to be self-responsible. This is emotional responsibility, y'all. And when you learn how to be emotionally responsible and take the energy and learn how to channel it in healthy, potent ways, it can be very generative. It is life force giving. There is always energy in our emotions, and if we block that from flowing, if we hold back, if we suppress it, that's what creates the anxiety. That's what creates the dissociation, right? I want to talk about this too really quick. I might even do a separate video on this, but someone was talking about this earlier and I wholeheartedly agree, so I want to talk about it here now. If you are numbing out your emotions with alcohol, with booze, with internet even, like social media or TV or smoking weed, those experiences tend to create a dissociation, so you don't have to feel your feelings and then you're disconnected from your own creative power and potency. I've done it, right? We've all done it, so there's no shame in it, but like, wake up. If you want to take creative control of your life, and if you want to truly feel fulfilled and connected and creative and living your full potential and with a life on fire and finding your voice and in your full self-expression, you have got to change those patterns, because what it does is it perpetuates, right? It perpetuates that dissociation. So the next time that you're feeling intense emotion and you grab a drink or you light a joint or whatever, you are just perpetuating the pain. Ultimately, you're just masking it. So it's really important that you first, and I'm all for having a good time. I mean, again, my parents will tell you I'm their Louisiana Saturday night baby. I was born in New Orleans on a Saturday night. Like, I love to have a good time. I'm all about celebration. And if it's not done consciously, or if it's done with the intention of masking an emotion like anger, rage, or grief, it will come, that energy is going to spiral internally and create a lot of pain and dis-ease and dysfunction, right? So you want to, hey Katie, you really want to embody and find healthy ways of creating space for your emotions through self-expression. That's the quickest, easiest way, right? All right, lots of love, you guys. If you're interested in joining the Creative Priestess School, if this is speaking to you and you'd like to really learn how to harness your creative power and potential and master your emotional freedom, private message me. I'd love to chat with you. Lots of love. Bye.